This video contains audio description. The content is presented by Yetnebash Nugusi Mola, UNICEF Disability Specialist. Photographs of children with disabilities from around the world. Disability Inclusion Training. Module 4, Participation.
Most of us think of ourselves as being able to make decisions about our own lives, what we want to do or not to do, and being able to work with others to achieve this. We vote in elections, we can participate in community meetings on local issues, and our doctors give us treatment options to choose from. But too often, this is not the case when it comes to the participation of persons with disabilities. Participation for persons with disabilities means we are involved in the decisions that affect our lives on an equal basis with other people. It's rooted in the principle of disability advocates around the world, nothing about us without us. That means that when you're designing anything, whether it's a program in health or education, a product like desk or a toilet, or a service like public transport or birth registration, if it has anything to do with persons with disabilities, then persons with disabilities should be involved in the decisions that are made about it. We should be given the opportunity to voice our opinions and be sure that those opinions will be heard and acted upon. Persons with disabilities have unique knowledge of their lived experience of disability that people without disabilities don't have, and we can contribute this knowledge to any project or service that intends to be inclusive for everyone.
Fatima Nabhani, UNICEF, Jordan.
We ensured that all cases of children with disability, of people with disability, they have private latrines and located in an accessible way for them. Our programs are established with partners on the concept of engaging community. The first step is to talk to the family, to understand what they need. It's a collaborative effort between what we know, what we can bring to the table, in addition to what they need and how they feel it's the best way to provide it for them.
Hamza, 11.
I told them not to make the sink too high or too low so I can wash my hands in it.
In this program that UNICEF launched to build accessible toilets in a camp for Syrian refugees in Jordan, Frontline Workers made sure that persons with disabilities participated in the decision-making. They didn't just assume that their engineers knew best. They went out and asked persons with disabilities themselves what they needed and what they preferred. And the results were great.
Marcelina, 23, from Samoa, speaks in Samoan Sign Language.
Participation is more than just attendance. And I think that's something that people don't always understand. Persons who are deaf need to be supported to feel they can actually contribute during a workshop. And that's the only way we can truly call it participation.
Brian, 30, from Peru.
Participating in politics has really broadened my horizons. I can advocate on the national level for the issues that affect people, and it has allowed me to connect with people.
Participation of persons with disabilities helped all these programs to be successful. But what would have happened if persons with disabilities hadn't participated?
Mark, 24, from Uganda, speaks in Ugandan Sign Language.
During the COVID lockdown here in Uganda, we didn't know how to go about the whole situation. We had no information. One of the measures that was put in place was implementing curfews. But since not everyone received the information about curfew and movement restrictions, there was bound to be some movement beyond the restricted hours. For example, in one case of a deaf person who was shot while going back to his home, he had no idea what was happening.
Participation is particularly important for children and young persons with disabilities as it can help them feel empowered, valued, confident, and that they can make a contribution to society. Young persons with disabilities can take part in decision making in all sorts of different ways. For example, as a student representative committee in a school, in community consultations for a WASH project, in advisory groups for a local health service, and so on. It can also help them meet other young people and make friends. So, when you include persons with disabilities, make sure that we are actively engaged. Don't just involve us in a superficial or empty way where we're invited to attend but cannot contribute to making decisions.
Maria, 21, from Bulgaria.
When I first transferred schools, due to bullying, my mom and I asked the school board for a meeting with my future classmates, just so we could explain what my condition entails and what the future educational environment might look like. But of course, I was turned down. I think having people with disabilities as consultants in school boards may help alleviate some of those difficulties when it comes to transferring to a new educational environment.
So, what can you do to ensure the participation of persons with disabilities? First, make sure that the information about your program or service, what it is, where and when it's happening, is accessible to everyone. That might mean that information is provided in written, spoken, and pictorial formats. And where people use sign language or read Braille, you can put out a flyer in Braille, add captions and sign language to an announcement, or develop easy-to-read texts. Actively reach out to local community networks and organizations of persons with disabilities to make sure this information actually reaches persons with disabilities who need it. It's hard to participate in something if you don't even know that it's happening. Second, create a safe and welcoming environment to encourage participation. For example, if you are organizing a focus group discussion, don't forget to provide a sign language interpreter if there are deaf children. If you're organizing an event, find a venue that's most accessible for persons with disabilities and plan your event there. This could include having your event outside or on the ground floor rather than in an upstairs room with no wheelchair access. Sometimes, you might need to provide direct support to persons with disabilities to make it easier for them to participate. It could be financial, like giving someone a travel allowance to help them make it to an event. Or it could be covering costs for a personal assistant, friend, or family member to provide support if needed.
An example of a meeting that has good accessibility is actually this interview. Prior to us meeting, you supported me by letting me select my own interpreter. Someone who I feel comfortable with and someone I can trust to be able to translate what I'm saying to you accurately. You also sent me information ahead of time. I could read the questions and make sure I understand what is being asked of me, and thus prepare ahead of time what I want to say.
If you work with children with disabilities, take an interest in them and make sure they have a friend around their own age who is also in your program. If you're ever nervous or reluctant to attend an event, it really helps to know you have a buddy who's going with you. One of the ways persons with disabilities make their participation happen is through OPDs, Organizations of Persons with Disabilities. OPDs are organizations that are formed and led by persons with disabilities themselves to represent their own interests. You probably have a lot of OPDs in your country that work at a local level, a national level, and there are many international OPDs too. So, if you are creating a program, campaign, or providing a service, find OPDs in your community to partner with to make sure it's inclusive and that persons with disabilities will benefit from it. Don't just assume they will contact you. You should reach out to them.
Rosa Maria Juarez Caveñas, Commission of Blind Women, Peru.
Nos falta esa articulación.
We're missing engagement between the government and organizations of persons with disabilities. We're always having to chase them, asking them to make their announcements accessible. Persons with disabilities or their organizations need to be involved to improve, because that is already the case in other organizations. There is this right to be consulted with, and when we are, progress is made.
But remember that organizations of persons with disabilities still don't represent everyone. So it's important to also reach out to more marginalized persons with disabilities, like people with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, people with deafblindness, refugees, and other displaced populations. Involving persons with disabilities in decision-making or designing programs is essential for the success of your programs. Tell people about the stories you've heard in this video. And as you work more and more with persons with disabilities, create opportunities for them to share their stories too. You won't just raise awareness, you will give people in your community new ideas, and you will give children with disabilities new role models to look up to.
UNICEF, for every child, with technical support from CBM Global Disability Inclusion, with thanks to NORAD, Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. Video production by Highway Child.